here we go now. All right. Howdy, everybody, and howdy, Dee. So this is really impromptu. We're just doing this real quick because we wanted to just look at some things and compare them to current events, right? So that's a weird title for this, right? Giants as in the days of Lot. It doesn't talk about giants in the days of Lot in those words. So what am I talking about? So what I'm talking about is if we look at Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, says there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. So that's kind of weird. So if we take a look at that in the Strongs, if my computer unfreezes. Okay, if we look at that in the Strongs, giants right here is Hebrew 5303. Okay, that is Nephil. That is from Hebrew 5307. That is meaning, that's Nephal, meaning to fall. Right there. That's where we get Nephilim also, I think. But Nephil, right, the word translated as giants, means a feller. Look at that feller over there. Okay. That is a bully or a tyrant. Very interesting, right? So the definition of feller, I looked it up. It's basically a lumberjack, a person who cuts down trees. I'm not going to bother with pulling that up, but it's interesting because of all the places in Scripture, and we just read a bunch of it, where men are likened to trees. So then we got, do you have this pulled up, Dee?
Yes.
Okay, so if you would, can you read Luke 17:27?
27 or through 28?
Yep,
okay.
27.
Okay, so 27 said people were eating, they were drinking, they were marrying, and they were being given in marriage until the day of that Noah entered the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. That's 27.
Yep, and then Yeshua says, likewise, also as it was in the days of Lot. They did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. Well, everybody talks about homosexuality. Doesn't mention anything in canon about eat or drink, buying, selling, planting, building. It hints at it, right? What was that we were just reading about where it hinted, gave us hints of that? I think I want to say it was Jeremiah. It might have been Ezekiel, but it was somewhere in there. Anyways, it doesn't make much sense. So what we want to do is read chapters 18 and 19 of the book of Jasher. And this may shed some more light on it. So I'll read chapter 18, and then if you would read 19.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. You know what? I'll share it too because I can. All right, so the book of Jasher, chapter 18. And Abraham rose and did all that God ordered him, and he took the men of his household and bought those bought with his money, and he circumcised them as the Lord commanded him. And there was not one left whom he did not circumcise, and Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised in the flesh of their foreskin. 13 years old was Ishmael when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And in the third day, Abraham went out of his tent and sat at the door to enjoy the heat of the sun during the pain of his flesh. And the Lord appeared to him in the plain of Mamre and sent 3 of his ministering angels to visit him. And he was sitting at the door of his tent, and he lifted his eyes and saw, and lo, 3 men were coming from a distance. And he rose up and ran to meet them. And he bowed down to them and brought them into his house. And he said to them, if now I have found favor in your sight, turn in and eat a morsel of bread. And he pressed them, and they turned in, and he gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he placed them under a tree at the door of the tent. And Abraham ran and took a calf, tender and good, and he hastened to kill it and gave it to his servant Eleazar to dress. And Abraham came to Sarah into the tent. And he said to her, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes to cover the pot containing the meat. And she did so. And Abraham hastened and brought before them butter and milk, beef and mutton, and gave it before them to eat before the flesh of the calf was sufficiently done. And they did eat. And when they had done eating, one of them said to him, I will return to thee according to the time of life, and Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And the men afterward departed and went their ways to the places to which they were sent. In those days, we probably could have skipped all that, but here we go. Verse 11 of Jasher 18. In those days, all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah and of the whole 5 cities were exceedingly wicked and sinful against the Lord. And they provoked the Lord with their abominations, and they strengthened in aging abominably and scornfully before the Lord. And their wickedness and crimes were in those days great before the Lord. And they had in their land a very extensive valley, about half a day's walk, and in it there were fountains of water and a great deal of herbage surrounding the water. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah went there 4 times in the year with their wives and children, and all belonging to them, and they rejoiced there with timbrels and dances. And in the time of rejoicing, they would all rise and lay hold of their neighbors' wives, and some the virgin daughters of their neighbors, and they enjoyed them. And each man saw his wife and daughter in the hands of his neighbor and did not say a word. And they did so from morning to night. And they afterward returned home, each man to his house and each woman to her tent. So they always did 4 times in the year. But wait, it gets better. Or worse, however you want to look at it. Also, when a stranger came into their cities and brought goods which he had purchased with a view to dispose of there, the people of these cities would assemble men, women, and children, young and old, and go to the man and take his goods by force, giving a little to each man until there was an end to all the goods of the owner which he had brought into the land. And if the owner of the goods quarreled with them, saying, What is this work which you have done to me? Then they would approach him one by one, and each would show him the little which he took and taunt him, saying, I only took that little which thou didst give me. And when he heard this from them all, he would arise and go from them in sorrow and bitterness of soul, when they would all arise and go after him and drive him out of the city with great noise and tumult. Verse 18. And there was a man from the country of Elam who was leisurely going on the road, seated upon his ass, which carried a fine mantle of divers colors, and the mantle was bound with a cord upon the ass. And the man was on his journey, passing through the street of Sodom, when the sun set in the evening, and he remained there in order to abide during the night. But no one would let him into his house. And at that time there was in Sodom a wicked and mischievous man, one skillful to do evil, and his name was Hadad. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the traveler in the street of the city. He came to him and said, Whence comest thou, and whither dost thou go? And the man said to him, I am traveling from Hebron to Elam, where I belong. And as I passed, the sun set, and no one would suffer me to enter his house, though I had bread and water, and also straw and provender for my ass. I am short of nothing. And Hadad answered and said to him, All that thou shalt want shall be supplied by me, but in the street thou shalt not abide all night. And Hadad brought him to his house, and he took off the mantle from the ass with the cord, and brought them to his house, and he gave the ass straw and provender, whilst the traveler ate and drank in Hadad's house, and he abode there that night. And in the morning the traveler rose up early to continue his journey, when Hadad said to him, Wait, comfort thy heart with a morsel of bread, and then go. And the man did so, and he remained with him, and they both ate and drank together during the day, when the man rose up to go. And Hadad said to him, Behold, now the day is declining. Thou hadst better remain all night, that thy heart may be comforted. And he pressed him, so that he tarried there all night. And on the second day he rose up early to go away, when Hadad pressed him, saying, Comfort thy heart with a morsel of bread, and then go. And he remained and ate with him also the second day, and then the man rose up to continue his journey. And Hadad said to him, Behold, now the day is declining. Remain with me to comfort thy heart, and in the morning rise up early and go thy way. And the man would not remain, but rose and saddled his ass. And whilst he was saddling his ass, the wife of Hadad said to her husband, Behold, this man has remained with us for 2 days, eating and drinking, and he has given us nothing. And now shall he go away from us without giving anything? And Hadad said to her, Be silent. And the man saddled his ass to go. And he asked Hadad to give him the cord and mantle to tie upon the ass. And Hadad said to him, What sayest thou? And he said to him, That thou, my lord, shalt give me the cord and the mantle made with divers colors, which thou didst conceal with thee in thy house to take care of it. And Hadad answered the man, saying, This is the interpretation of thy dream. The cord which thou didst see means that thy life will be lengthened out like a cord. And having seen the mantle colored with all sorts of colors, means that thou shalt have a vineyard in which thou wilt plant trees of all fruits. The traveler answered, saying, Not so, my lord, for I was awake when I gave thee the cord, and also a mantle woven with different colors, which thou didst take off the ass to put them by for me. And Hadad answered and said, Surely I have told thee the interpretation of thy dream, and it is a good dream. And this is the interpretation thereof. Now the sons of men give me 4 pieces of silver, which is my charge for interpreting dreams. And of thee only I require 3 pieces of silver. And the man was provoked at the words of Hadad, and he cried bitterly. And he brought Hadad to Sirach, judge of Sodom. A judge. Interesting. And the man laid his cause before Sirach the judge. When Hadad replied, saying, It is not so, but thus the matter stands. And the judge said to the traveler, This man Hadad telleth thee the truth, for he is famed in the cities for the accurate interpretation of dreams. And the man cried at the word of the judge, and he said, Not so, my lord, for it was in the day that I gave him the cord and mantle which was upon the ass, in order to put them by in his house. And they both disputed before the judge, the one saying, Thus the matter was, and the other declaring otherwise. And Hadad said to the man, Give me 4 pieces of silver that I charge for my interpretation of dreams. I will not make any allowance, and give me the expense of the 4 meals that thou didst eat in my house. And the man said to Hadad, Truly, I will pay thee for what I ate in thy house. Only give me the cord and mantle which thou didst conceal in thy house. And Hadad replied before the judge, and said to the man, Did I not tell thee the interpretation of thy dream? The cord means that thy days shall be prolonged like a cord, in the mantle that thou wilt have a vineyard, in which thou wilt plant all kinds of fruit trees. This is the proper interpretation of thy dream. Now give me the 4 pieces of silver that I require as a compensation, for I will make thee no allowance. And the man cried at the words of Hadad, and they both quarreled before the judge. And the judge gave orders to his servants, who drove them rashly from the house. And they went away quarreling from the judge when the people of Sodom heard them. And they gathered about them, and they exclaimed against the stranger, and they drove him rashly from the city. And the man continued his journey upon his ass with bitterness of soul, lamenting and weeping. And whilst he was going along, he wept at what happened to him at the corrupt city of Sodom.
Chapter 19. And the cities of Sodom had 4 judges to 4 cities, and these were their names: Sirach in the city of Sodom, Sharkad in Gomorrah, Zabnak in Admah, and Menon in Zeboim. And Eliezer, Abraham's servant, applied to 3 different names, and he converted Sarach to Shakra, Sharkad to Shakrura, Zebnak to Kibozim, and Menon to Metzlodim. And by desire of their 4 judges, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah had beds erected in the streets of the city. And if a man came to these places, they laid hold of him and brought him to one of their beds, and by force made him to lie in them. And as he lay down, 3 men would stand at his head, 3 at his feet, and measure him by the length of the bed. And if the man was less than the bed, these 6 men would stretch him at each end, and when he cried out, they would not answer him. And if he was longer than the bed, they would draw together the sides of the bed at each end until the man had reached the gates of death. And if he continued to cry out, they would answer him, saying, Thus shall it be done to the man that cometh into our land. And our men heard all these things that the people of the cities of Sodom did, and they refrained from coming there. And when a poor man came to the land, they would give him silver and gold, and they caused a proclamation in the whole city not to give him a morsel of bread to eat. And if the stranger should remain there some days and die from hunger, not having been able to obtain a morsel of bread, then at his death all the people of the city would come and take their silver and gold, which they had given to him. And those that could recognize the silver and the gold which they had given him took it back, and at his death they also stripped him of his garments, and they would fight among them, and he that prevailed over his neighbor took them. They would after that carry him and bury him under some of the shrubs in the deserts. So they did all the days at any one that came to them and died in their land. And in the course of the time, Sarah sent Eliezer to Sodom to see Lot and inquire after his welfare. And Eliezer went to Sodom, and he met a man of Sodom fighting with the stranger. And the man of Sodom stripped the poor man of all his clothes and went away. And the poor man cried to Eliezer and supplicated his favor on account of what the man of Sodom had done to him. And he said to him, Why dost thou act thus to the poor man who came by to the land? And the man of Sodom answered Eliezer, saying, Is this man thy brother, or have the people of Sodom made thee a judge this day, and thou speakest about this man? And Eliezer strove with the man of Sodom on account of the poor man. And when Eliezer approached to recover the poor man's clothes from the man of Sodom, he hastened and with a stone smote Eliezer in the forehead. And the blood flowed copiously from Eliezer's forehead. And when the man saw the blood, he caught hold of Eliezer, saying, Give me my hire for having rid these of this bad blood that was in thy forehead, for such is the custom and the law in our land. And Eliezer said to him, Thou hast wounded me and required me to pay thee thy hire. And Eliezer would not hearken the words of the man of Sodom. And the man laid hold of Eliezer and brought him to Shakra, the judge of Sodom, for judgment. And the man spoke to the judge, saying, I beseech thee, my lord, thus has this man done. For I smote him with a stone that the blood flowed from his forehead, and he is unwilling to give me my hire. 21. And the judge said to Eliezer, This man speaketh truth to thee. Give him his hire, for this is the custom of our land. And Eliezer heard the words of the judge, and he lifted up a stone and smote the judge. And the stone struck on his forehead, and the blood flowed copiously from the forehead of the judge. And Eliezer said, If this then is the custom in your land, give thou unto this man what I should have given to him. For this has been thy decision. Thou didst decree it. And Eliezer left the man of Sodom with the judge, and he went away. And when the kings of Elam had made war with the kings of Sodom, and the kings of Elam captured all the property of Sodom, and they took Lot captive with his property. And when it was told of Abraham, he went and made war with the kings of Elam, and he recovered from their hands all the property of Lot, as well as the property of Sodom. At that time the wife of Lot bare him a daughter, and he called her name Paltith, saying, Because God has delivered him and his whole household from the kings of Elam, And Paltith, the daughter of Lot, grew up, and one of the men of Sodom took her for a wife. And a poor man came into the city to seek maintenance, and he remained in the city some days, and all the people of Sodom caused a proclamation of their custom not to give this man a morsel of bread to eat until he dropped dead upon the earth, and they did so. And Paltith, the daughter of Lot, saw this man lying in the street, starved with hunger, and no one would give him anything to keep him alive, and he was just upon the point of death. And her soul was filled with pity on account of this man, and she fed him secretly with bread for many days. And the soul of this man was revived. For when she went forth to fetch water, she would put the bread in the water pitcher. When she came to the place where this poor man was, she took the bread from the pitcher and gave it to him to eat. So she did many days. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah wondered how this man could bear starvation for so many days. And they said to each other, "This can only be that he eats and drinks, for no man can bear starvation for so many days or live as this man has, without even his countenance changing." And 3 men concealed themselves in a place where the poor man was stationed, to know who it was that brought him bread. And Paltith, daughter of Lot, went forth that day to fetch water. And she put bread in the pitcher of water, and she went to draw water by the poor man's place, and she took out the bread from the pitcher and gave it to the poor man, and he ate it. 32. And the 3 men saw what Paltith did to the poor man, and they said to her, "It is thou that hast supported him, and therefore has he not starved, nor changed in appearance, nor died like the rest." And the 3 men went out of the place in which they were concealed, and they seized Paltith and the bread which was in the poor man's hand. And they took Paltith and brought her before the judges, and they said to them, "Thus did she do, and it is she who supplied the poor man with bread. Therefore did he not die all the time. Now therefore declare to us the punishment due to this woman for having transgressed our law." And the people of Sodom and Gomorrah assembled and kindled a fire in the street of the city, and they took the woman and cast her into the fire, and she was burned to ashes. 36. And in the city of Admah there was a woman to whom they did the like. For a traveler came into the city of Admah to abide there all night, with the intention of going home in the morning. He sat opposite the door of the house of the young woman's father to remain there as the sun had set when he had reached that place. And the young woman saw him sitting by the door of the house. And he asked her for a drink of water, and she said to him, "Who art thou?" And he said to her, "I was this day going on the road, and reached here when the sun set. So I will abide here all night, and in the morning I will arise and continue on my journey." The young woman went into the house and fetched the man bread and water to eat and drink. And this became known to the people of Admah, and they assembled and brought the young woman before the judges, and they should judge her for this act. And the judge said, "The judge of death must pass upon this woman, because she transgressed our law, and this therefore is the decision concerning her." And the people of the city assembled and brought out the young woman and anointed her with honey from head to foot, as the judge had decreed, and they placed her before a swarm of bees, which were then in their hives, and the bees flew upon her and stung her that her whole body swelled. And the young woman cried out on the account of bees, but no one took notice of her or pitied her, and her cries ascended to heaven. And the Lord was provoked at this, and at all the works of the cities of Sodom, for they had abundance of food and had tranquility amongst them, and still would not sustain the poor and the needy in those days. Their evils, doings, and sins became great before the Lord. And the Lord sent for 2 of the angels that had come to Abraham's house to destroy Sodom and its cities. And the angels rose up from the door of Abraham's tent after they had eaten and drunk, and they reached Sodom in the city. And Lot was then sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when he saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed down to the ground. And he pressed them greatly and brought them into his house, and he gave them victuals, which they ate, and they abode all night in the city. And the angels said to Lot, "Arise, go forth from this place, thou and all thy belonging to thee, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of this city, for the Lord will destroy this place. 49. And the angel laid upon the hand of Lot, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hands of his children, and all that belonged to him. And they brought him forth and set him without the cities. And they said to Lot, escape for thy life, and flee, and all that belonged. And he fled, and all that belonged to him. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom, and upon Gomorrah, and upon all these cities brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew these cities, all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. And Ado, the wife of Lot, looked back to see the destruction of the cities, for her compassion was moved on account of her daughters who remained in Sodom, for they did not go with her. And when she looked back, she became a pillar of salt, and it is yet in that place until this day. And the oxen which stood in the place daily licked up the salt to the extremities of their feet, and in the morning it would spring forth afresh, and they licked it up until this day. And Lot and two of his daughters that remained with him fled and escaped to the cave at Adullam, and they remained there for some time. And Abraham rose up early in the morning to see what had been done to the cities of Sodom, and he looked and beheld the smoke of the cities going up like the smoke of a furnace. And Lot and his two daughters remained in the cave, and they made their father drink wine, and they lay with him, for they said, there is no man upon earth that could raise up seed from them. For they thought the whole earth was destroyed. And they both lay with their father, and they conceived and bare sons. And the firstborn called the name of her son Moab, saying, from my father did I conceive him. He is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger also called her son Benami, and he is the father of the children of Ammon until this day. And after this, Lot and his two daughters went away from there, and he dwelled on the other side of the Jordan with his two daughters and their sons. And the sons of Lot grew up, and they went and took themselves wives from the land of Canaan, and they begat children, and they were fruitful and multiplied.
Well,
Quite a story.
so do you see any parallels between them goings on and what's happening today?
I do.
I do too. And if we go back to looking at bully or tyrant, how can we not be there now?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems anywhere in the world, across the whole earth, it seems that that's the way it is to me.
We certainly have plenty of tyrants floating around.
Right? Well, look at the courts.
Mm-hmm. Can you get a just ruling and judgment right now?
Chances are no. Don't gamble on that. But the chances are very likely no. Can you go out and feed the homeless?
Not easily.
A lot of places you'll get arrested. Very interesting too, talking about the person who brought wares into their town so that he could sell them and make a living, and they all ripped him off. Didn't we see that all last year and this year too?
Well, and also you have the taunting. They give you just a little.
Yep.
And then what? You're complaining because you got just a little. What are you complaining about? and then they give you back just a little.
Yeah. Yep. Most certainly. And that it's interesting that his daughter fed this guy they're trying to starve to death. And then at the end of that episode, it says, no wonder he has not starved to death like the rest. So this is like a regular game of theirs. So, anyways, I just wanted to bring that to people's attention. We haven't gotten to Jasher yet, but I just felt like we need to read it and get it out there. Now, were there big giants? Yes, I believe there were big, tall people giants. Were they bullies?
Yeah. But there's more than one meaning to many words.
Right? There is in that. But I was just thinking, there's been a big, tall physical giant in the news lately who's acting like one of these bullies and tyrants from Sodom and Gomorrah. And you know, we need to side with the unjust. Okay, whatever. It's just ridiculous. I hope this gives people food for thought. In that, you had said you'd only read part of Jasher before.
Mm-hmm. I had read this, but it's been a while.
Yeah. So we will be getting into it at some point in time. Thanks for reading. I would have ran out of steam.
That was a long chapter.
It was. Yeah. Anyways, thank you very much, Dee. Everyone, I hope this gives you some thought. Come read with us. And
it's fun.
Be back mañana en la mañana for the Sabbath reading. So everyone, I love you all. We'll talk to you soon. Like, share, subscribe.